Glenn Robinson, the big dog, had kind of an interesting NBA career in regards to how it began, to how it went, and how it finished. While looking at the whole body of work, perhaps there may be different ways to define Glenn Robinson's time in the NBA. Was the big dog a bust, overlooked, overrated, or perhaps none of the above? This video is going to take a brief look at number 13's NBA career and decide what to make of it. To begin, I want to start with Robinson's career at Purdue, and this is where I became a huge fan of the big dog, who by the way got his nickname from a janitor who said, "You gotta move over and let the big dog eat," while referring to Robinson on the offensive end. Anyways, the big dog put up huge numbers at Purdue. My favorite moment was when Robinson scored 44 points against Kansas in their Sweet 16 matchup in 1994. But after that game, things greatly changed. In their Elite 8 matchup, and with the chance to go to the Final Four, Purdue go up against Grant Hill and the Duke Blue Devils. Now, as mentioned earlier, I was a huge fan of the big dog, and I was somewhat of a Duke hater and a Grant Hill hater. But Duke won, and after this game, and I have to be honest, Grant Hill showed he was a better player. Robinson struggled, as a good part of that was Hill's defense and Robinson, especially when Robinson didn't have the ball, and once Robinson received it, Hill was all over Robinson. Now on the other end, Hill was much quicker and showed his quick first step the few times Robinson was assigned to guard him. Now I do want to mention, and I did not know this until researching this for this video, but Robinson was dealing with a back strain during this game, so it may have affected his performance. This back strain was thought to have occurred in the game against Kansas, but perhaps it was due to some friendly wrestling matches after the game in their hotel room. Nonetheless, with the 1994 NBA draft on the horizon, the Milwaukee Bucks selected Glenn Robinson first overall, despite being outplayed by Hill in the regional final matchup. Now I just want to briefly break down their games. Now first for Glenn Robinson, he didn't have any kind of special quickness, vertical leap, or speed, but he could score and shoot, especially from the mid-range, and arguably he was the best mid-range shooter in the 90s. Robinson didn't need a lot of space to get his shot off and could make shots with defenders in his face. Furthermore, the 6'7" Robinson could come off screens, but however, Robinson maybe was a bit of a tweener, as maybe he was too small to play power forward and not quick enough to play small forward back when positions mattered more. And as for Grant Hill, I thought he had a special quickness to his game, as he had perhaps the quickest first step ever for a small forward. Furthermore, Hill could distribute the ball and be a point forward. But as mentioned earlier, Robinson went to the Bucks first, then Jason Kidd went to the Mavs, and Hill went to the Pistons. Now afterwards, Robinson and the Bucks had an issue, and that was that the big dog wanted to sign for a huge contract. He was looking for an insane $100 million contract, and as a result, Robinson held out a training camp, but eventually he signed a 10-year, $68 million contract, which is the richest rookie contract ever in NBA history. Would the big dog live up to the huge contract? When Robinson's NBA career began, I felt he really went under the radar so quickly. At this time, it was Grant Hill who's getting all the publicity. As a huge NBA fan in the 90s, I was getting bombarded with Grant Hill commercials with Fila, Sprite, and McDonald's. Glenn Robinson, now he did have his own shoe from Reebok, but I really don't recall his commercials that well. However, Glenn Robinson did make an appearance on TNBC's Hang Time, which automatically makes a big dog cooler than Grant Hill. But anyways, Grant Hill was getting all the publicity and was on the NBA and NBC numerous times, and quickly Hill was being labeled as a superstar. But enough of Grant Hill, this is all about the big dog. So early on in his career, Glenn Robinson proved he could score in the NBA. During his rookie year, Robinson did lead the NBA in turnovers, but averaged 21.9 points per game, which is pretty good for a rookie. However, Jason Kidd and Grant Hill, they were the co-rookies of the year. Sorry, I mentioned Grant Hill again, but nonetheless, I also want to mention very early in his NBA career, Robinson was selected to play for Dream Team 3. However, this was very questionable at the time, this selection. Ultimately, Robinson had to withdraw due to an Achilles tendon injury, in which Robinson rather have it heal and be able to play fully healthy for the next season. So Glenn Robinson continued to be a consistent scorer. Moreover, Milwaukee had one of the best young frontcourt duos in the NBA with Robinson and Vin Baker, which drafted in the previous draft 8th overall. Then later on, the Bucks drafted Stephon Marbury, but then traded him in exchange for Ray Allen and a first-round pick. However, I felt the Bucks did get a better point guard than Marbury by acquiring Terrell Brandon, but having to let go of Vin Baker. Unfortunately, success didn't really materialize until the 2000-2001 season. This would be the best season for the Bucks with Glenn Robinson. For this season, the Bucks finished with a 50-32 record and won the Central Division with a very underrated big three in Robinson, Allen, and Sam Cassell. Milwaukee made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals but lost to Philadelphia in 7 games. Bucks head coach George Karl and also Ray Allen believe the series was rigged because the NBA did not want a small market team like Milwaukee in the finals. This was a big dog's best opportunity to be part of a championship team in Milwaukee, but it didn't come into fruition. For the 2001-2002 season, Robinson would put up another campaign, averaging over 20 points a game. The Bucks would not return to the playoffs, and Robinson was dealt in the offseason to Atlanta after playing 8 years in Cream City. Now real quickly, and I swear this is the last time I'll mention Grant Hill, and I promise you that, but is it justifiable to make the argument that the Bucks made the correct selection and drafted the big dog over Grant Hill? As Robinson did have 8 consistent years with the Bucks and did help the Bucks to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. While on the other hand, Grant Hill never made it past the first round during his 6 years in Detroit, and it started to really break down physically during his 7th and 8th years in the NBA while with Orlando. Nonetheless, Robinson had a solid year in Atlanta, then went to Philadelphia, then went to San Antonio where he only played 9 games, but was credited with being an NBA champion, and then he retired. I grew up in Big Ten country, and it seemed like all the talk for the 93-94 college basketball season was about Glenn Robinson. But strangely, it seemed like that talk disappeared so quickly before Robinson's first step onto an NBA court. I understand maybe Glenn Robinson didn't quite make the impact you would expect with the first overall selection and with that huge contract, but Robinson was not a bust, and I don't think he was ever overrated. But I think when I look back at it, and to simply put it, Robinson played like how he was expected. He showed he could score and shoot from the mid-range. Now, Robinson wasn't going to get that high shot volume as he did in college, and by the way, it was surprising that Robinson averaged around 22 shots a game during his last season at Purdue with Gene Cady as his head coach. But anyways, Robinson was a very consistent player for Milwaukee. It's just the hype in college, a huge contract, and Robinson playing in a small market that didn't go to the playoffs that may have distorted the perceptions of many. But in reality, the consistent player Robinson was in college was the same consistent player he was in the NBA.
Answer the one by Hunter at the other end. 6 seconds for the Bucks to get off a shot. Robinson to the front court, running three-pointer, good!
Real quick, I just want to thank all those who have supported 90 Sports Nostalgia. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, and check out the links below for Patreon and merch. Thank you so much. Remembering Glenn Robinson's time in the NBA.